Osohlamahle insuku tisithupha inyanga yesithathu inyanga yendlovu lomkhulu umnyaka wa-2026 liviki lekuqala kuyoke lenyanga kanti ke sephetha liviki nganalolu hlelo lesiluqalako lomhla ekuseni September nivuka kahle nivuka nikhuthatekile ukuthi nihambe niye emsebentini niya ukuthi nithuthukise nelive leMaswati September ukuthi ke lusuku lutawuba ngololuhle sivuka in good spirits seloku nje siyekhutha lwandle lungelele nje solo siteka yona singangena emoyeni kuthi na ke Maswati labanenhlanhla athola inkosi lewathandzako lekuthite na emave alwa le emaveni kubo Gulf State kubonakalisa ukuthi kunebungoti bekuthi bantu bangaba kuleto ndzawo leto yathi ngonyama kuphume i-private jet ilandzela Maswati ke nangemambala abuyile ekhaya sisitamataba thombeni ukuthi sixoxisane nabo labo labakhonile kubuya ekhaya kulukhunyana ke kubathola ngoba these are people's families banu nje lesingeke sithi celebrities or anything of that sort, but these are just your ordinary everyday Swati who were in that state dama khona impilo siyathembisa lo sister uqhubeka setame emavikini letako kubathola sixoxisane nabo. Otherwise it is a very good morning, we are still in high spirits sijabula nje nakulesikubone kwendeka esukwini kusakwa idolo kambe ebusukwini bangalesithathu.
You're right Mngoni. I think kunabo nje kubajabulisile especially because nawubuka lama videos on social media that are trending kuqhuma sichumane usalele nje hotela so ake simo bese sikabi kakhulu nabo mhlambe na staff gcina sibatholile batazivotela sithomise ukuthi besinjani vele simo and how happy they are to be back home lapha ekhaya ngakho ke vele siyayibonga ingonyama ukuthi vele ibabuyise ekhaya over 25 amaswati nakhonile kubuya lapha ekhaya nakunje siyababona bayehla bayabuya khona Middle East lapho khona kuchubeka lo msindvo khona. So we're happy to see them they are back home and safe.
Yeah, and I think quite notably is that this is indeed the first group of Maswati resident in the Gulf region who arrived through the King Mswati III International Airport on Wednesday evening. This happened having been successfully evacuated by the government under direct command from His Majesty King Mswati III. These 25 Maswati were repatriated from the United Arab Emirates, and we are learning that Minister of Foreign Affairs, Senator Pulile Shakantu, has encouraged Maswati who remain in the Gulf region to reach out to Eswatini's diplomatic missions in the region or the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation.
Yeah, visuals are courtesy of Eswatini government page on Facebook. Sititfole khona ekasini la hulumende. But yeah, siyababongela la Maswati lawa. Nasibuka nje Mngoni vele tindzaba letendeka kuleli viki siyade ukuthi vele bese solo sigatsile ukuthi emakhosi atawumemetela the date of the second leg of Hlane Bukanu Festival sivele sesiyayati date there's the 13th of March invuna imemetele ukuthi bophezu kwemkhono babhekekile ukuthi batheleke esigodlweni ehlane ngalesihlanu next week on the 13th of March.
Yeah, yathi kusindzaba lefana letululu singati nanadela nasikodwa ngicabanga ukuthi it's wise lokho ukuthi sifake le sound kule clip lesivele lesimemetelo sitingenele bophezu komkhono bativele siyacela nje production team yethu ukuthi sicalelele phasi le clip ledlala kwemoyeni with the sound so that bophezu komkhono ngoba phela nakunesimemetelo nje basidlalwa every day ahead of that event sendela ukuthi nangabe bawusengeva ukhone kutivela stars esone thine sibhimbe sibe nemabatha ngiso simemetelo sebugana uhlane edition.
Uyezwana lalela sikutshele tindzaba letibuye enkosini. Uyezwana uthokandaba luthango lonke laselibonjeni aluphelele ehlane esigodlweni ngalesihlanu lite nebugani bakhe mhlatili 13 kuyo indlovu lenkulu mhlatili 14 liyagidza libutho mhlatili 15 liyachithwa libutho Usho njalo Mswati lomnyama kulabalithuli. Ulodungandaba sembelebelweni, ulodungandaba semambondweni. Bayethe wena phakathi.
Phezu komkhono. Ngikuthunywa ngawe emakhosi. Libutho lonke lwelithango kufanele silivunule lihiya leli olinji ngemgcibelo. Bese ngelisonto livunula lihiya lelibovu. Luthango ke libheke ukuthi lonke luvunule kahle, lube luhle, luphindze lihloniphe. Bayethe wena waphakathi.
Yeah, ngisoke simemetelo sehlane edition of Bugano ceremony the year 2026. Sibuya eplane lokhu nje sesitawubheka khona ehlane ngempela sonto yamhla ka14 eplane ke nakhona umsebenzi ube muhle balandzeli bemsakazo tithombe Eswatini TV bakhona ukuthi bakuthokotele kubona tithombe makhosikazi esilo nelibutho siyabona ngemambala bekukuhle kushikishwa phansi emakhosi abekhona as much as the King Mswati the third Ndlovukazi Mhlekazi umkhosi lobo muhle kakhulu bophezulu komkhono baphume ngentinombolo.
Yeah, and siyalijabulela leholiday. Ngiyacela sibophezulu komkhono balijabulela leholiday. It has officially been announced. It is on the 16th of March after kuphela the second leg of Buhlane Bugano ceremony, which is on a Monday. So le holiday leli lisakhumbula msamahle ukuthi la saniketwa yinkosi Mswati ukuthi kube lilanga la sitawuphumula khona. So yasathi nasicetha ehlane sihambe siyophumula.
Lokunye ke lokubeka kuhle kakhulu ngebuhleni edition kube la ngesikhathi emakhosi saphefumulela umhlaba aphefumula embi kwelithango nemhlaba wonke ngiyawakhumbula emavi Ndlovukazi Mhlekazi uma iteka ingcingwana lematima kakhulu ukuthi lulwimi lwesiswati alungasilahlekeli singemaswati kusho Ndlovukazi lokho ibekisa sibonelo sokuthi ivusele bantwana bangakhona ukuphendvula nesiswati sekungathi sekuhamba kakhulu lolulwimi lokuhamba noma ke the languages lesingasho ukuthi akasiyo alapha ekhaya. So leyo nsaya leyo ke sethembe ukuthi bophezulu komkhono ukuthi bayivile bantwana batawufundziswa siswati bakhone ukukhuluma ulwimi lwabo kahle.
Yeah, kunjalo mukele ngede sathi icetha letendeke kuleli viki kepha nje just before we go for an ad break ngifuna khaletha naye nje Mnguni leya Mlulami yakhumula ukuthi a while back last year he trended for building a double story
stick and mud
double story. So li obviously lifinandvuna kakhulu la ibona lendlu yakhe lathi cha wadla mina simakhele indlu sibili sithabathaba se double story. So yasamjabulela naye Mlulami ukuthi finally ukhonile kulala endlini yakhe this week.
Yeah, and courtesy visuals from Eswatini TV. Yeah. I believe we do have those visuals and we will be playing them back just to show you la nasetfulelwa lendlu yakhe. Quite an emotional day kakhulu lulu lokwaba kuhle kakhulu ukuthi nale sive sonke saphuma kuseshiselweni lapha sive sakhona sakhombisa ukuthi hawu nangemambala nakuphonswa liches vivaneni kwenziwa njalo vele liphupho lakhe ke libe lihle kakhulu njoba sevele lifezekile emava DPM saweva ukuthi naye wasuka emagonzo lathi nkwenge kuthunywa ngawe emakhosi lathanza sive semaswati ukuthi akwakhelwe emaswati leswele tindlu naku ke nguye sebamvulela umnyango awusone balcony kambe kuthiwa ibalcony angitati ke lemoto singisi noma iPorsche naye ngivela amagama sashiwa manje ngana phela.
Yeah, kunjalo Mnguni.
Yeah,
all right. No tinhle kakhulu tithombe lapha siyabona ukuthi umsebenzi wahamba kahle kakhulu impela. Sanamukela masonza kusivulela. This is the Friday edition of Kusile Breakfast Show. Stay tuned. Kunene sephathele kona lo mhla ekseni. Wayenza usisel khefu sayawena tindzaba tesiswati.
Live selikhulile la kaNgwane live la kaNgwane belinalo ligama leli livele likhona mandulo. Kepha ke kwahamba kwabonakala ukuthi live liyashintsha litoze likhone kubonakala ukuthi libitike kahle kwase kuthiwa iSwaziland. Emaveke onke lebekanawo lamagama lefanana nalela lakithi ase abuyela egameni lemlando. Nathi ke laSwatini sinalo ligama bekunene kwekuthi live leSwatini useSwatini. Namuhla ke sithi asikumemetele ukuthi sekutawuvele kiko konke la kubhaliswa khona uvele kusale kubhaliswa ukuthi sekuseSwatini njoba singemaswati nje singabe sibita ligama lesingede salikhona nekulibita kahle bogogo nalabo bomkhulu abangakatholi lithuba babe solo bashwambuluta ukuthi sesitawuvele sadiwe ngekuthi silive leSwatini kungasasilo leSwaziland bekunene.
Hello to all the viewers of Eswatini TV in the kingdom and beyond. Eswatini TV is regulated by the Eswatini Communications Commission through the Broadcasting Code and Broadcasting Guidelines. Under these instruments, the station commits to broadcasting information and news that have been fact-checked, programs and content in respectful language with no elements of hate speech, violence or sexual activity. If you hear any unsuitable content on this channel, you have a right to voice your complaints with the station management. Should you not be satisfied with the response or action taken, you can escalate your matter to the Communications Commission at PO Box 7811 Babani. Call 2406 7000 or send an email to info@esccom.org.za. For more information, visit www.esccom.org.za.
Asimze sinemukele nathi tindzaba kulandzela kulwa lokuchubeka kwesifundazweni seGulf ingwenyama seyinikete uhulumende ngaphansi kwelitiko letangephandle nekudlelana nalamanye emave umsebenzi wokusukuma athinkwe kulandwe eMaswati lahlala kulamave alesifundza labatsinga kubuya ekhaya. Umbiko welitiko letangephandle lokhishwe indvuna yalelitiko umhlonishwa Apholile Shakhantu uthi ngekuthunywa ngiyo ingwenyama uhulumende langeni layitolo ukhonile kulandzela eMaswati langemashumi lamabili nesihlanu labahlala eveni le-United Arab Emirates labafikele esikhumulweni setindiza eKing Mswati III International Airport. Indvuna yithi lo msebenzi ukhombisa luthando nekukhathalela inhlalakahle eMaswati ingwenyama lenaku ngesive seMaswati. Indvuna yithi uhulumende utimisele ukuchubeka aqinisekise ukuphepha kwalo lonke leSwati lelihlala kulesifundza saseGulf. Indvuna ke iphindze yacela ukuthi eMaswati lahlala kulesifundza latsinga kubuya ekhaya achumane nemahhovisi abosibalikhulu balamave la kulesifundza noma bachumane nalo litiko letasekhaya lapha eveni kude lonke leSwati liphephe kulesikhathi lesimadima bayethe wena waphakathi. Indvuna yelitiko tekulima umhlonishwa Mandla Chauka ithi kude live lisincobe isifo semlomo namasondvo lidzinga kucinisa ekulungiseni bodalati labavikela live kulesifo pheceleti ama-cordon fences ikakhulukati ngoba solo siyachubeka lesifo siyangena lapha eveni sichamuka eveni leNingizimu Afrika.
Ngesikhathi indlu yabaye esikhulu idzingidza imaphakelo elive ngalesithathu indvuna yetiko letekulima umhlonishwa Mandla Chauka yetfulile indlu yabaye esikhulu ukuthi live litawucinisa ekulungiseni bodalati labavikele sifo semlomo nemasondvo cordon fences ikakhulukati ngoba live liyachubeka libhekana netinhlobo letahlukene talesifo letingena tichamuka eveni labomakhelwane iNingizimu Afrika.
Kubonakala ukuthi litiko letekulima lithole 15 million wekulungisa ama-cordon fences la 57 million wekujova tonke tingomo eveni. Ngivile-ke siyati ukuthi vele abahlonishwa nababuka banelungelo ukujaja ngendlela ababona ngayo. Liciniso lithi i-FMD eveni ingene kakhulu ngalokuthi semkhathini weSouth Africa. South Africa ikhungethwe i-FMD kakhulu. Ingene etindzaweni letintsatfu, ingene enshiselweni. Sayinqoba le yangene esitshelweni sayicethela elubuleni. Ne-strain sakhona ngumgciwane lelihlukile. Kwangena ke lelisha ligciwane kumambane. Kwangena lelisha kazobotse emuva. Kunalelinye nyalo lungtako ngala kubombuluzi. Lokho kukhomba lokuthi indzaba lenkulu kulama cordon fences. So nasingathatha le mali nce sibeke sente lokunye. Le live leli in 5-10 years time. Ngindeka nendvuna lekhona ngabe ngasekho la. Kodwa tawuhlupheka le live ngoba le FMD tapongena ichamuka le South Africa. Kungako kumcoka usilo 15 million simsebenzise kulama cordon fences. Siyakubonga ke lokho ukuthi asisita sesibalile tinombolo noma ke imali letsingakalako ngoba lo hlelo lwalikhona kadzeni. Imali letsingakalako ukuthi sivuse letindalate letivikele live ku-FMD isabalele kodwa lo 15 million utawucala kusibhekisa lela sifane siye khona kuze usilive livikeleke kusasa.
Litiko letekulima ke evikini leliphelile ngalesibili licala lihlelo lokujova tonke tinkomo eveni lapho kucale kwathengwa khona imijovo lengu-70,000 kwalandzela lomunye futhi longu-50,000 kanti kuleli viki ngekusho kwalo litiko letekulima kutawufika leminye futhi imijovo lengu-80,000 njengoba live litawugcine lisebenzise imijovo lengu-910,000 ngoba inkomo iyinye kumele ijove kabili kude ivikeleke ngalokuphelele. Lobikako nguSamkalisiwe Khoza ePhalamende.
Imvuna yelitiko letekuvakasha netindzaba temvelo umhlonishwa Jane Simelane seyivule ngalokusemtsetfweni indzawo letsengisa tihlahla temdzabu enkhundleni yaseHhugwini. Imvuna isukumise nemali yesikhwama setemvelo yalomnyaka lengangathu million emalangeni lokuyimali letawusita imimango emisebentini leyehlukile yetemvelo.
Sitovula nayi inesari shoko ukuthi yingungu yekuhlanyela tihlahla letahlukahlukene. Tihlahla tetitselo, tihlahla tesintfu, letingemagugu etfu tsine emaswati. Simema kakhulu insha kokuthi ithathe lelitfuba lale nesari ngaloko ukuthi kunebantu labadzala lebangibona bamcoka kusiniketa lwati lwemvelo kokuthi kunanati tihlahla nati lesihlahla lesi siyini ligama umsebenti waso wenta ini. Kunetihlahla nje insha lehambe atilandze tintsabeni letingitona sitibona lapha abantu labadzala bayatichaza naletinye nasitibuta bathi hayi ke leso asikho sitfolakala khashane. Lokusho ukuthi insha ayithathe lelitfuba itfole lwati kulabantu labadzala ngoba bangaze bahambe sitalifuna lo lwati singabe sisalitfola. Okunye lesitabe sikwenta indzaba yokuthi sitabe sisukumisa sikhwama setemvelo simemetela lokuthi bantu sebangeta bato applyela lusito lokuthi batfole kusitakala ngemisebenti lebayentako etinkundleni tabo noma emphakatsini yabo. le mali lekungiyona siyetfula namuhla lesithi bantu abayi-aplayele kito tonke tifundza nakito tonke tinkhundla nako wonke imiphakathi imali lenganga-2 million imali lengajiki ayibuyele emuva lo 2 million but baya-aplaya bacale imisebenti yabo etindzaweni tabo kuthuthukisa imango yabo baphindze batithuthukise kwananabo.
Indaba yesikhulu seyicele uhulumende ukuthi sekabuyele etafuleni ayobuka ukuthi kulamaphakelo eminyakati imali wahulumende wa 2026-2027 angeke yini sebangetelwe imbasha yabogogo nabomkhulu nalabasemkhathini. Emalunga bekakhuluma ePhalamende ngesikhathi indlu itsingisa emaphakelo elive.
Ekubeni indvuna yetemafa umhlonishwa neRickenback evikini leliphelile ngalesihlanu etfule emaphakelo elive eminyakati imali wahulumende wa 2026-2027 langu-36.92 billion emadlangeni. Indlu yabaya esikhulu ngalesithathu ibese idzingidza lamaphakelo bahlonishwa bakhala kakhulu ngendzaba yemali yabogogo nabomkhulu nalabo labakhubatekile lengabonakali kuwo emaphakelo ayo indvuna.
Speech on Electronics itsinzile ngendzaba yabantu labadzala bogogo nabomkhulu but ngemase sibuka ibudget lekhona akafakwa lutho Mr Speaker. Lokho kusho ukuthi sithandza ngani ngemavi kuphela asithandze ngetendo. Kungaba kucela nje endvuneni yetemafa nikubahlonishwa bonke ukuthi simanele ibudget singayiphasi singakangeni imali yabogogo.
Angathi ukuthi kungentiwa kanjani ukuthi i-finance committee nale ministry yase finance laba ngibona baphethe lesikhwama babuke lo ukuthi kungentiwani la kubogogo bahlangane nje babukusane ukuthi kungathiwani Mr Speaker ngoba tinde titolo tidurile Mr Speaker. So sikhala kakhulu nje kakhulu la kulabogogo ngoba Mr Speaker ukhanza ukuthi sekucinzeteleka leli tiko la DPM.
Atubane ngiyawukhala vele ngicele ukuthi nabe ikhona indlela bengendeka ekubuyeketeni indzaba yabogogo nalabo lebonisa ukuthi bakhubatekile eveni imane ayisebenziseke lokuthula lokhu kunyeva leli buhlungu kakhulu emakhaya. Ngiyakholwa ukuthi kude umhlonishwa lokhona la lokakasithole isikhalo bese nesithemba na
Hlonishwa Speaker ku budget le endlulile kwaba na 20% lofakwako increment bakhala bogogo ukuthi incane leyo mali leyo ngabathulisa emaseyisini ngathi thulani bogogo indvuna ithi data bongena le mali njalo ngeminyaka
Ngicela Mr Speaker ukuthi indvuna lihloniphekile imane agenda debate indlu kahle Mr Speaker indvuna lihloniphekile ike ithatha ifinance committee bambe bawuhlala phansi Mr Speaker kuloku lokuncane ngiyajabula ukuthi uvuma kahle ngoba sokuphendule nje Mr Speaker kuyevakala. Ngiyacela ukuthi si-agenda debate bahambe bayobuka Mr Speaker kahle umuntu ucela lokho Mr Speaker nawe ngicela ungisupporte Mr Speaker.
Indvuna yetemafa umhlonishwa neRickenback ibese yetfulela lendlu ehloniphekile timphendvulo.
But Honourable Speaker, there is pressure in this budget like I don't think we've had in many budgets, the pressure we have in this budget because of the salary review exercise, because of interest shooting up, and because of capital projects we've already approved in the House, which we now have to start, or else it's going to cost us a lot more. Unfortunately, there just was not space to fit things in this year. And so hence, Honourable Speaker, that is the reason why, not because there's no heart or no agape love or anything else, it was really a space problem that we battled to find to fit in something for the elderly. Again, we can go and look at it. I've got no problem. I know there's some suggestions that we should go back and consider it. We can do all that. But my plea would be and if we can maybe as cabinet agree here, because we understand the pressure, is to say that next financial year, we don't look at inflation. We give them again 100 Mlangeni in the following financial year, elderly and disabled. In that way, they know it's coming. In that way, they can bargain and budget it. And we then know as a budgeting team, Nomaganjan, it must fit in before we look at other things next year.
Kuletinye tindzaba indlu yabaya esikhulu icele ukuthi uhulumende sekabuke indzaba yokwenabisa luhlelo lwemfundo yamahhala emabangeni laphakeme. Indlu ke yabaya esikhulu akayishiya indzaba yenkohlakalo lathe malunga abuyisela imuva intuthuko yelive. Lobikako nguSamkelswe Khoza ePhalamende.
Tinkantolo lowe judiciary dithi tifuna kuphuma titimele njengokusho kwemthetfo sisekelo welakuleli tingendiwa tibe ngaphansi kwelitiko letemtsetfo kanye nemtsetfo sisekelo uma kubukwa endzabeni yemali letiphakelwa yona. Lendzaba le yingcenye yembiko waleli komiti lexoxisana lelibenako nendvuna yetemafa nakukhulunyiswa imali yokuphakelwa ematiko ngeminyaka wetimali wa 2025-26 kanye na 2026-2027.
Lating 25 enyangeni endlovana lomnyaka losetulu tinkantolo tahlangana nelikomiti lelitiko letemafa lapho tafike takhala khona kutsi kungani tentiwe tibe ngephansi kwelitiko letemtsetfo uma tinikwe emaphakelo kanti phela umtsetfo sisekelo ukubeka ngalokusobala kutsi titimele kulomhlangano lo lijaji lelikhulu leliphindze libe ngusihlalo welibandla lelicesha tisebenti tetinkantolo i-Judicial Service Commission JSC bekumaphalala belikatsi litfumelelo sabambe kuba mabhalane wenkantolo yetindzaba kanye nemacala andlulisiwe i-Supreme Court isiphiwe nyoni. Mabhalane wenkantolo lenkulu noSipho Mazibuko kanye nalobuke imali etinkantolo Dr. Chlori Mdluli laba bafike bagcizelela bomcoka bekuthi tinkantolo tiphume tithi gelekece titimele njengaloku kuthi nguleminye imikhono yahulumende letimele. Hulumende wakhiwa imikhono lemithathu lokuthi inkantolo iPhalamende kanye nelibandla letindvuna tembuso. Lemkhono le ngekusho kwemtsetfo sisekelo lakuleli kumele isebente ngekukhululeka nangekutimela. Tinkantolo tatisa leli komiti ukuthi tifuna kutimela emalini kude kube titawukhona kusebenta kahle nangekukhululeka. Tithi njengaleto letitimele atikhululwe tiboletha ngco ePhalamende lokho letifise kuphakelwa kona hhayi kutsi tikulethe ngephansi kwelitiko letemtsetfo kanye nemtsetfo sisekelo. Tinkantolo tizitiyanaka kutsi liphakelo lato liphethwe litiko letemtsetfo kanti futhi kumele ukuthi nakukhulunyiswa leli phakelo kufanele abe khona amabhalane lomkhulu walelitiko letemtsetfo. Tinkantolo tithi letimvumo tekuyosebentela ngephandle kwelakuleli travel approvals kulawulwa litiko letemtsetfo tithi lokhu kubanga tinkinga ekusebenteni kwato futhi akukhombi nje ukuthi titimele tona. Tinkantolo tichibha tithi uma setitimele timalini titawuchubeka tilandzele yonke imitsetfo lengamela imali yahulumende lokufaka ekhatsi kuvele ebandleni le-Public Accounts Committee PAC. Tinkantolo tithe ngani namanje-ke noma imali yathi ilawulwa ngabhalane lomkhulu letiko letemtsetfo kodwa nasetivele embi kwe-PAC ube sakasaba khona amabhalane lomkhulu kuleli tiko. Leli komiti selivele tetfulo tetinkantolo selitigucugucula libe selitfola kutsi nembala vele kuyonakala ngendlela liphakelo letinkantolo leliphethwe ngayo naleliphindze lihlelwe ngayo njengaloko ikhomba kwephula umtsetfo sisekelo uma sekubuye etindzabeni tekuthi tinkantolo tingileto letitimele. Leli komiti lithi ayilungiswe ngekushesha lendzaba le yokuthi tinkantolo tentiwe tibe ngephansi kwelitiko nakubuye etimalini. Lithi akuye njengekusho kwemtsetfo sisekelo ukuthi tinkantolo tingileto letitimele. Leli komiti libe selincoma ukuthi indvuna yelitiko letemtsetfo kanye nendvuna yelitiko letemafa abaphutfume bahlangane netinkantolo. Inhloso lenkulu ukubuka indlela liphakelo letinkantolo leliphethwe ngayo naleliphindze lihlelwe ngayo kude kutokucinisekisa ukuthi tinkantolo tingileto letitimele sibili. Lobikako ngumfortune Dlangamandla ngisembabane.
Konati temidlalo imbabana Highlanders waphike onke emacala labekuwo wona yinhlangano ye-Premier League. Kanti-ke siyatiphetha ngaleto temidlalo sibahlele temakethe masinyane sitawubuya sichubeke nehlelo.
All right. Welcome back to the program. We did promise you when the show started that we're going to have a very insightful conversation premised on the very reality that international exposure is increasingly becoming a very, very powerful tool for strengthening education systems. For teachers, opportunities to work abroad do not only enhance professional growth, but also they bring new skills, there's cultural insights, as well as teaching methods back home. One such opportunity is the FEI Language Assistant Program, an international initiative that is coordinated by France Education International, and it places foreign language assistants in French schools to promote linguistic and cultural exchange. Now, for the third consecutive year, the Kingdom of Eswatini is participating in the program, sending teachers to France for the 2026-2027 academic year. Currently, 4 teachers from Eswatini are already in France, supporting French students in developing their English language skills while also sharing Swazi culture. Let's get more about this initiative and let's learn more from Annelisa Stoffels, Senior Inspector to French from the Ministry of Education, as well as Nosipho Lamini, Class Coordinator, Alliance Française. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Bonjour.
Bonjour. Bonjour, monsieur.
Ça va?
Ça va très bien, merci. Et vous?
How did I do on a scale of 1 to 10?
Perfect. We're on CBE, so don't worry, your skills are on point.
Fantastic. CBE though. Anyway, welcome to the program. Very, very beautiful initiative. Annelisa, we've had a conversation, I think 2 years ago or a year ago. I'm not too sure, but I want to start with you because I want to understand what exactly is the language assistant program and why is it important for the Kingdom of Eswatini to be a part of it?
I think, yes, we've had this conversation before because like you've rightfully said, this is the 3rd consecutive year that we're sending our teachers to France. So the whole aim is to say, in this country, we teach French as a foreign language. And we do understand and acknowledge that we teach them locally, and those are local teachers. But obviously, because of the gap that we have in terms of the linguistic proficiency, with us being surrounded by Lusophone speakers in Mozambique, and Anglophone speakers, South Africa, Lesotho, and mostly the SADC countries are mostly Anglophone.
Yeah.
So we have this gap linguistically to say our teachers are not really exposed. You can not randomly meet somebody that speaks French in the street.
Yeah.
So that means that our teachers have that linguistic gap. So this initiative is trying to close that gap and to ensure that as a ministry, we align with the SDG goal number 4, which speaks of quality education, in ensuring that our teachers are well equipped to teach the language fluently, efficiently, and probably even transmit it well to our learners. Hence, sending them to France will be total immersion for us. So we were quite excited when we received this project, or rather this program as a ministry, because then it meant our teachers are able to be in France, speak French every day, because as soon as you touch base at the airport, even the announcements are in French. So it's French throughout. And they're there for 7 months.
Yeah.
So they're speaking French day in, day out. They're exposed to the teaching. Now, let's come to the classroom setup now.
Sure.
To say, in the class, the teacher, yes, they are there to assist the French learners to teach English. But outside of the English classroom, they're speaking French.
100%.
So it's a win-win because the French want to speak English, and we want to enhance the linguistic competency of our teachers in French. So that is why we are sending our teachers, and it's quite an exciting adventure for us and for them as well.
Yeah, I also love how the ministry is intentional around working with people who are in that, let's say category, for lack of a better term, and that's why you have Alliance Française. And Nosipho, bringing you into the conversation, what role do you believe you are contributing as AF?
Okay, so thank you very much. As we said, this is a 3-year program that's been going on, and we're hoping that it's going on for a very long time, for the foreseeable future. And so we are very grateful for just the collaboration with the Ministry of Education and with the French Embassy, which is in Mozambique. We have so many other programs, so we are very excited for it.
Yeah, and how would you say Alliance Française is contributing to the program directly?
Okay. Yeah. We are the liaison or the partner or the tool that is on the French side.
Right.
So the Ministry of Education is taking care of the Eswatini side, and the Alliance Française is helping on the French side. So with logistics and of course with some funds where possible, yeah.
I mean, I think, Annalisa, before we went on air, you hinted on a news clip that we had, I believe, on Wednesday evening. And one member of parliament was speaking to prospective students that want to go and learn overseas, and it's just alluding to the importance of being multilingual. And coincidentally, this particular country that they're aspiring to go, pursue their studies in, is looking for people that are fluent in French. I want you to speak to me about the importance of taking up French, also other languages, because the Swahili, there's other languages, but French in particular, because I want to take you back to, fortunately we went to the same primary school. I mean, you went to one practicing primary school, you left before there were French lessons. During my time, they were already in there, but the way I perceived them, I was skeptical towards learning French, but I'm realizing now, perhaps I should have taken lessons.
Most definitely, times have changed. The world has become a global village. And I think one area that His Majesty highlighted was us being able to export our personnel. Because we do a lot of importing. We import goods. At some point, we even import personnel.
Yeah,
but it's time for us now to export eMaswati to the world. And using French is one of the institutions or the drivers that we can use to export our personnel or our citizens. Because I'll make an example. For SADC, you have the King will be taking on a chairmanship this year for Troika. You will have those French-speaking countries coming into the country.
Yes.
And how many interpreters and translators that are eMaswati do we have? It's an area that we have not navigated as a country, we have not explored as a country, yet it's one area that we could go into. So it's not just teaching, but it's the language and the different components that the language offers. Because we can do translation, we can do interpretation. You have our UN organizations. When you have French, it's an added advantage, because obviously, as we affiliate in these international organizations, French is one of the key languages that are used. Yeah. And you find that as eMaswati, it's a language we don't have. So it's a space that we need to actually tap into and make use and advantage of. Yeah. So sending our learners, even, it's not just for study, even for business as well. We need to look into that, going to business, going to education sector. We are talking tourism. Once we want to have make money out of tourists, we are going to have so many. And as I speak, normally I laugh when we go to Menzini, the George Hotel. Not a day goes by without having a bus of tourists that speak French.
Oh wow!
Every single day.
Yeah.
So that tells you that Eswatini has become a destination of choice for many French-speaking people. But how many of us actually speak the language as eMaswati? So it's important for us to then now tap into that space to say, what is it that we can do? We have scholarships that are available. We have MOUs that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has come up with, for instance, the Moroccan scholarships. But here you have students going to study in different fields. But here's the snag. The medium of instruction is French.
It's French.
So it becomes twice as difficult for a learner who's not done French in high school.
Yeah.
So you see, had you done French, you probably wouldn't be here.
Yeah, no, I would know more than bonjour and yeah. Okay, that's quite interesting indeed, because as you speak, I'm reminded of all these summits that are held every year, and we always see our leaders wearing these headphones. And I asked a couple of years ago when I joined the newsroom, what are those for? And they said, oh, there's a language barrier, so someone at the back is translating for them. So, and for me, that speaks to job opportunities as well. Exactly. We have the ICC that is being completed soon, and it's going to host a lot of these summits as well, God willing. So there is a space there to explore. It's a niche indeed. Let me bring you in back. Nosipo, we understand there's already, people who are placed in France already. And they are teachers
Yes.
from Eswatini. They're already placed there. What are they
Yes.
doing in the classroom? What are they contributing? And, what kind of exposure are they getting?
Okay, so as Annalisa said, we have 4 of them right now coming back in May, and they are helping the English teachers in France, assisting them in teaching English, but in them assisting teaching English, they are also getting the immense exposure of the French culture.
Yeah.
As we said, if the only English they are speaking is when they are helping the teachers in class, outside the classroom, everywhere in the streets, at home, they are speaking French. They are immersed in the French culture, which is going to actually equip them when they come back to teach in their learners in the local schools, because
Yeah.
they are coming back to teach.
I mean, that skills transfer component is quite critical because they come back, Annalisa. I think it is quite easier when I see someone that I relate to teach me the language. How would you submit to that session?
I totally understand, and I totally concur with what you're saying, because I'll make an example. When you teach adjectives in French, you will not teach them using the English rules.
Exactly.
Because it makes it better if you teach them in Siswati.
Yes.
Because of the order. Normally in Siswati we will say ingubo lebovu, which is the same order even in French. We're going to say une robe rouge. So the color will come at the end. Yet in English it's totally the opposite. So having a local who understands and who speaks French is able to then blend, and then when the learners are lost, you are able to tap into their mother tongue. That even goes for the pronunciation. A, E, I, O, U. That's what you use when you teach phonetics in French. You use Siswati, not English. So yes, so it actually works to have a local that is teaching the learners, and they can actually relate to say it's something that's doable. I remember when we were in high school doing French, at the time we did not have a local. It was always foreign nationals that taught. So it was always an idea of saying it's something that cannot be taught by locals. But when you have a local teacher who is a Dlamini, who was born and bred, and you even know them, and they actually speak quite fluent French, then you know there's hope, and it gives trust to the learners to say, I can actually do it as well. And we've seen a lot, and I'm quite happy that as a ministry we've been able to localize now. So in our public schools, we have localized at 100%. So our teachers are local teachers.
Yeah. I mean, you hinted on tourism in your previous answer, and this is how I want to bring you in, Nosipo. I'm very big on culture myself, and I see how culture and tourism, particularly in Eswatini, intertwine. A lot of our tourism is driven by our culture here at home, and this beautiful advantage that we now have for cultural exchange when we have a Maswati going to France. And my hope is that these 4 teachers are quite, staunch about their culture and their tradition. How do you submit that cultural exchange really helps when they are that side and they are presenting themselves as people from Eswatini?
Zive, thank you. Interesting you talk about this, because before we came in, we were talking about one of the teachers. She was sending us a video yesterday where she's having a presentation, and she was wearing like you actually, in full blonde traditional. Yes, full blonde. So in a way, yes, we are also getting the culture from France, but also France is also getting to understand and to learn about our culture, our way of life. So it is a win-win situation.
Yeah, and it's amazing how these things work, especially in this digital age. I can attest to that myself. I've had one of my photos go viral on social media, and I would have never, imagined myself going viral, but it was just simply because I was in my traditional regalia and I was just comfortable in it. And people around the world really resonated with it. And the beautiful thing is when you look on the insights, you can see the French region. So many people were tapping on that photo and they were quite excited about it. And I think, some of it has a lot to do with this particular program because they've sort of seen it there. What do you think? Do you think that's possible?
True. Actually, now we have, I think the cohort that left last year, the family is actually coming to visit Eswatini now.
Wow.
Because, they got interested in learning more about the country, and they've started even Googling about the country, because you know what happens now when we send those teachers in the schools where they're going. It's quite interesting when we get there. You find already they've actually done mini research of the country to say, okay, we've just Googled and found out what your country is and what you guys do, and then they start asking you questions, and that already is tourism in a sense, because now you are able to then even correct the misinformation or the disinformation about the country, to say, and give the accurate narrative of the country and what we do as a country. So it's quite exciting, and already I received an email from the group that the teacher she's talking about was with yesterday. It was a Rotary thingy event, but a French Rotary Association or something.
Right.
And they had specifically requested her to come in to explain about what Eswatini does, our culture, and she was dressed in her regalia. And then she even had pictures in her presentation. She had pictures and explaining the different regalia that the different regiments wear. If you're a married woman, this is how you present yourself. If you are single, if you are unmarried but have a child, if you are in Bali, and so on and so forth. So it was really quite interesting. And already we've been marketed in France. And the good thing about it is, it's not something that's just happening in Paris, because they're in different regions. So the marketing gets, spread across all the regions. Some are in Grenoble, others in Lyon, some are in Laval. So it's different regions of France. So we're doing quite well in the marketing space as well.
Yeah, it's very beautiful. Let's get back to the program itself, because we're just speaking about the fruits of the program right now.
Definitely.
I can already see someone at home wondering, eligibility criteria. Speak to that, Nosipo.
Okay, so we have already opened the program, and it is open to Emaswati that are teaching in schools. What's the age? Please remind me the age.
22 to 35.
Yes, 22 to 35, and we opened it on the 25th. It's closing.
Yeah, you can still go on.
Yes, the deadline for closing is on the 14th of March, so people still have time, and we have a link where they can apply because it's online, and we can check with the Ministry of Education or with the Alliance Française for more information on how to get the link.
You want to chime in?
Can I chip in though and say yes? So in as much as yes, we are buddies, we grew up together, but you cannot, unfortunately, join this cohort because there's one area that will be a problem for you. You need to have level B1 of French, DELF French now, because the understanding is you need to understand what they are saying so that you're able to respond.
Fair enough.
So that's another one of the criteria that you need to actually have, apart from being a Liswati, apart from being a teacher, a secondary school teacher, apart from being between the ages 22 to 35, you then also need to be proficient in French.
Do you see, and I'm thinking expansion now, let's expand the program. Do you see from, let's say, a policy standpoint, this program expanding in the Kingdom of Eswatini, and if so, what has to be done? What are some of the guardrails that are there? I mean barriers. My bad. What are some of the barriers that are there right now?
We would have loved. I think because of the very good collaboration that we have with the French government and how well our teachers are representing us. Because I might add, just yesterday, one of our teachers had an inspection because they go through the normal system. So she had an inspection yesterday, and I was called by the principal saying she's done extremely well.
Wow.
Even the inspector was very impressed with the work that she had done, which then gives confidence to the French government to say we have not put our money to waste. We really are getting value for money. But also for us as a ministry, it is working because the teachers are expected as they come back. Not only are they going to help the learners that they are teaching in their respective schools, but the idea is to then become trainers of the other teachers that will not have an opportunity to go to France. We would have loved to have everybody go to France, but remember at the primary school we have about 60 schools already, and this program started in 2023. It was 2024 to 2029. And we're hoping we can still expand it. But still, not everybody will have the chance to go there because obviously there's budgetary implications to it. So that is why we can only send a maximum of 5 teachers at a go because the French government only assumes responsibility of them when they get to France. So the transport logistics for them getting there are actually incurred by the government. So obviously, and French is not the only subjects that we have. We have quite a number of subjects. I mean, there are so many reforms that education is undergoing. So we're all sharing one slice, I mean, the one cake. So it helps for us in a sense. But if we could get more funding, I'm hoping that the Alliance and the French government will be able to say, let's actually increase the number of teachers that we actually send. Because yes, I acknowledge others being trained locally is not the same as you being in France and being in the country where you are speaking the language day in, day out. So it would be nice for us to really send as much teachers as we possibly can. But I'm sure the collaboration is going to last quite a while, so we will be able to send as many.
Certainly isn't the same, and to use the term you used, Nosipo, earlier, the ones that are in France are immersed within the French culture as an umbrella. Looking ahead, you know, but before we even look ahead, what do you say to, because she looked at you and she said she's hoping that you guys are able to increase the numbers. Are you able to make, what's the word? Are you able to, what's the word that I'm looking for?
To make a commitment on
Yes.
national television?
Yes.
No, I am not able.
I was pushing my luck.
In the absence of your bosses.
In the absence of my bosses, we will discuss internally.
But it's a conversation,
It is a
that we've had
conversation.
with the director of the Alliance as well as the French embassy, because we really do sit in those meetings, and they were saying probably there is a possibility of them probably even funding some of the teachers from the embassy side to join those ones that the government will be for sponsoring, so that we increase the numbers.
Yeah.
So I'm hopeful.
Nosipo,
Yes.
as we wrap up, what would you say to teachers in Eswatini right now who may be considering applying for this opportunity?
I would really encourage the teachers to apply because now we're doing secondary level. So I really encourage everyone in secondary level who has the B1 to apply for this opportunity because then the next one is going to be next year. Like Annalisa said, it's not going to be everyone that gets it. So we are hoping that the ones that do qualify come up front and apply because then they come back again to help and teach and train their colleagues.
Just how big is the appetite though? I mean, if you were to give me a ballpark estimate of the people that apply, and I'm asking this intentionally, there will be a follow-up question.
Okay.
Yeah, how many people, give or take, apply? Because like you say, you'll take how many?
4, 5.
I think this time we'll take 4.
4 to 5.
Yeah.
From a group of how many applicants?
Applicants.
You find there's 30, 35, 40 of them,
On average.
Yeah, on average, because we have quite a number of the teachers. But also then, Sfiso, it depends which level, because we have more primary school teachers than we do have the secondary. And we're trying to balance this up as a ministry to say, if this year we've sent the secondary teachers, the following way we're sending primary school teachers. So there's a balance in for the 2 levels.
So if we take a consolidated number of all the French teachers that we have, both in primary level and secondary level, in Eswatini, would you say that is a sufficient number for our economy, for the, you know, our education populace?
Okay, there's probably yes and no.
Okay.
Yes, with the current schools, but remember we have schools that wish to actually offer French because French is not taught in all schools. So we have more and more schools. We actually see a lot of the schools, especially the rural schools now, having an appetite to introduce French in their school system. So with that now, obviously, the more schools we have, the more teachers we will have. But currently, with the current cohort that we have quite enough. But obviously, we will need to increase the number of schools. The more schools we get, the more teachers we get. And also, diversifying the offering, the teaching of French to the other areas that I alluded to earlier, the interpretation
Yes,
and
very important.
translation, because those are courses on their own, you know. I've just been reminded recently, the Ministry of Public Service had a conference in December last year, and they needed interpreters and translators in French. You know, we can do it, but we're not trained to do it because, like I say, it's a whole career path that you do. So it's also an area that they can explore other than just being specific to teaching.
Yeah,
You know?
and you did speak on SDG number 4 earlier, and it also speaks to inclusive,
Yes.
access of education, and supporting that point that you just made. If we get into interpretation and everything else, we are then being inclusive, and we are really,
Reaching the goal.
yeah. I think we've run out of time. I'm so sorry that our conversation has to end here, but I do want to give you the opportunity to speak to the people at home if there's anything that we have left out that you want to be relayed. Yeah.
From my end, I think we've said it all. It's just to wish them luck because obviously there's going to be a selection process, you know. People are applying, they're welcome to apply. The platforms are already open, and may I still remind the teachers the deadline is the 14th of March. That's when we close. And then obviously there's going to be a selection process, and then I'll say, may the best candidates win.
Yeah.
Yes.
So with those words, it just means everyone that's going to win, it's going to be by merit.
Yes.
May the best candidate win.
Thank you.
Nothing by favor, as this other, what is that slogan? Not by favor, but by merit.
Yeah.
I love that slogan.
Yes.
Anyway, let's go for a quick ad break. We'll be back shortly.
akayithathe akahambe nayo
ndaba emehlo akavuthe imali angabi anjengewembube anjengewengwenyama
Nangulu nebekunene Nkosi Bekimpi Hlonishwa His Excellency His Majesty King Mswati III. This is the moment of truth. King Mswati III as he is being driven around the arena and greeting the crowd. There is whistling, ululating, and joy among everybody here.
Nayo-ke isisondela izohlaliswa ke esihlalweni sayo sobukhosi yinkosi entsha yesizwe samaSwazi bandla esiyibona laphayana.
inkosi ikuthula akayithathe akahambe nayo akayithathe yotenza bakhe
Sichubeka nalo hlelo lethu kusile breakfast show kulesikhathi sitawubukati ndzabate siswati. Kulandzela kulwalo kuchubeka kwesifundzeni seGulf ingwenyama seyinikete hulumende ngaphansi kwelitiko letangephandle nekudlelana nalamanye emave umsebenti wekusukuma atsinkwe kulandwe emaswati lahlala kulamave akulesifundza lawo-ke ladzinga kubuya ekhaya. Umbiko welitiko letangephandle lokhishwe indvuna yalelitiko umhlonishwa Apholile Shakhantu uthi ngekutfunywa ngiyo ingwenyama hulumende langeni langalesithatfu ukhonile kulandza emaswati lange-25 lahlala khona eveni le-United Arab Emirates kanti-ke lamaswati njengasetitfombeni yafikele esikhumulweni setindiza eKing Mswati III International Airport ngalesitsatfu ebusuku. Indvuna ithi lo msebenti lo ukhombisa lutsandvo nekukhatsalela inhlalakahle yemaswati ingwenyama lenako ngesive semaswati. Indvuna ithi hulumende utimisele kuchubeka acinisekise kuphepha kwalo lonke eliswati lelihlala kulesifundza saseGulf. Indvuna-ke iphindze yacela ukuthi emaswati lahlala kulesifundza ladzinga kubuya ekhaya achumane nemahhovisi abosibalukhulu balamave labakulesifundza noma-ke bachumane nalo litiko letasekhaya lapha eveni kute lonke liswati liphephe kulesikhatsi lesimatima. Ayethe wena waphakathi. Ngachubeka nato ndzaba indvuna yelitiko letekulima umhlonishwa Mandla Chauka ithi kute live lisincobe sifo semlomo nemasondvo lidzinga-ke kucinisa ekulungiseni bodalati labavikela live kulesifo pheceleti ema-cordon faces ikakhulukati ngoba solo siyachubeka lesifo nekungena lapha eveni sichamuka emaveni lafaka ekhatsi live leNingizimu Afrika. Indvuna beyikhuluma ePhalamende ngalesitsatfu ebusuku.
Ngesikhathi indlebe esikhulu idzingidza imaphakelo elive ngalesithathu indvuna yetiko letekulima umhlonishwa Mandla Chauka yetfulile indlebe esikhulu ukuthi live litawucinisa ekulungiseni bodalati labavikele sifo semlomo nemasondvo cordon fences ikakhulukati ngoba live liyachubeka libhekana netinhlobo letahlukene talesifo letingena tichamuka eveni labomakhelwane iNingizimu Afrika.
Kubonakala ukuthi litiko letekulima lithole 15 million wekulungisa ama-cordon fences na 57 million wekujova tonke tingomo eveni. Ngivile-ke siyati ukuthi vele abahlonishwa nababuka banelungelo lokujaja ngendlela ababona ngayo. Liciniso lithi i-FMD eveni ingene kakhulu ngalokuthi sisemkhathini we-South Africa. South Africa ikhungethwe i-FMD kakhulu. Ingene etindzaweni letintsatfu, ingene enshiselweni. Sayinqoba leya ngene esitshelweni sayicethela elubuleni. Ne-strain sakhona umgciwane lelihlukile. Kwangena-ke lelisha ligciwane kumambane. Kwangena lelisha kazobodze emuva. Kunalelinye nyalo elilungitako ngala kubombuluzi. Lokho kukhomba lokuthi indzaba lenkulu kulama-cordon fences. So nasingathatha le mali nce siyibeke sente lokunye. Lelive leli in 5-10 years time ngenteka nendvuna lekhona ngabe ngasekho la kodwa litawuhlupheka lelive ngoba le-FMD itapho kungena ichamuka le-South Africa. Kungako kumcoka ukuthi lo 15 million simsebenzise kulama-cordon fences. Siyakubonga-ke lokho ukuthi asisita sesibalile tinombolo noma-ke imali ledzingakalako ngoba lo hlelo lwalikhona kadzeni. Imali ledzingakalako ukuthi sivuse letindalade letivikele live ku-FMD isabalele kodwa lo 15 million utawucala kusibhekisa lela sifanele siye khona kuze usilive livikeleke kusasa.
Litiko letekulima-ke evikini leliphelile ngalesibili licale lihlelo lekujova tonke tinkhomo eveni lapho kucale kwathengwa khona imijovo lengu-70,000 kwalandzela lomunye futhi longu-50,000 kanti kuleli viki ngekusho kwalo litiko letekulima kutawufika leminye futhi imijovo lengu-80,000 njengoba live litawugcine lisebentise imijovo lengu-910,000 ngoba inkhomo iyinye kumele ijove kabili kute ivikeleke ngalokuphelele. Lobikako nguSamkalisiwe Khoza ePhalamende.
Indvuna yelitiko letekuvakasha netindzaba temvelo umhlonishwa Jane Simelane seyivule ngalokusemtsetfweni indzawo yekutsengisa tihlahla temtsabu enkhundleni yaseHukwini. Indvuna isukumise nemali yesikhwama setemvelo yalomnyaka lenganga-2 million emalangeni. Letsi-ke imali letawusita imimango emisebentini leyahlukile yetemvelo.
Sitovula nayi inesari shoko ukuthi ingungu yekuhlanyela tihlahla letahlukahlukene tihlahla tetitselo, tihlahla tesintfu letingemagugu etfu tsine emaswati. Simema kakhulu insha kokuthi ithathe leli thuba lale nesari ngaloko ukuthi kunebantu labadzala lebangibona bamcoka kusiniketa lwati lwemvelo kokuthi kunanati tihlahla nati lesihlahla lesi siyini ligama umsebenti waso wenta ini. Kunetihlahla nje insha lehambe atilandze tintsabeni letingitona sitibona lapha abantu labadzala bayatichaza naletinye nasitibuta bathi hayi ke leso asikho sitfolakala khashane. Lokusho ukuthi insha ayithathe leli thuba itfole lwati kulabantu labadzala ngoba bangaze bahambe sitalifuna lo lwati singabe sisalitfola. Okunye lesitabe sikwenta indzaba yokuthi sitabe sisukumisa sikhwama setemvelo simemetela lokuthi bantu sebangeta bato applyela lusito lokuthi batfole kusitakala ngemisebenti lebayentako etinkundleni tabo noma emphakatsini yabo. Le mali lekungiyona siyetfula namuhla lesithi bantu abayi-applyele kito tonke tifundza nakito tonke tinkhundla nako wonke imiphakatsi. Imali lenganga 2 million, imali lengajiki ayibuyele emuva lo 2 million, but baya-applya bacale imisebenti yabo etindzaweni tabo kuthuthukisa imango yabo baphindze batithuthukise kwananabo.
Khulu seyicela uhulumende ukuthi sekabuyele etafuleni kuyawubuka ukuthi kulamaphakelo eminyaka mali wahulumende wa 2026-2027 kangeke yini sebangetelwe imbasha yabo bogogo nabomkhulu nalabo labasemkhatsini. Emalunga bekakhuluma ePhalamende ngesikhathi indlu itsingitsa emaphakelo elive.
Ekubeni indvuna yetemafa umhlonishwa ne-Rickenback evikini leliphelile ngalesihlanu etfule emaphakelo elive eminyakathi-mali wahulumende wa 2026-2027 langu-36.92 billion emalangeni. Indlu yabaya esikhulunga lesithathu ibese idzingidza lamaphakelo bahlonishwa bakhala kakhulu ngendzaba yemali yabogogo nabomkhulu nalabo labakhubatekile lengabonakali kuwo emaphakelo ayo indvuna.
Speech of Nebutroni siyitsintsile ngendzaba yebantu labadzala bogogo nabomkhulu, but ngemase sibuka ibudget lekhona akafakwa lutho Mr Speaker. Lokho kusho ukuthi sithandza ngani ngemavi kuphela asithandze ngetendo. Kungaba kucela nje endvuneni yetemafa nikubahlonishwa bonke ukuthi simanele ibudget singayiphasi singakangeni imali yabogogo.
Angathi ukuthi kungentiwa kanjani ukuthi i-finance committee nale ministry yase-finance labangibona baphethe lesikhwama babuke lo ukuthi kungentiwani la kubogogo bahlangane nje babukisane ukuthi kungathiwani Mr Speaker ngoba tindwe titolo tidurile Mr Speaker. So sikhala kakhulu nje kakhulu la kulabogogo ngoba Mr Speaker ukhanza ukuthi sekucinzeteleka leli tiko la DPM.
Tubane ngiyawukhala vele ngicele ukuthi nabe ikhona indlela bengendeka ekubuyeketeni indzaba yabogogo nalabo lebonisa ukuthi bakhubatekile eveni imane isebenziseke lokuthula lokhu kunyeva leli buhlungu kakhulu emakhaya. Ngiyakholwa ukuthi kude umhlonishwa lokhona la lokakasithole isikhalo bese nesithemba.
Hlonishwa Speaker, ku budget le endlulile kwaba na 20% lofakwako increment. Bakhala bogogo ukuthi incane leyo mali leyo. Ngabathulisa emaseyisini ngathi thulani bogogo indvuna ithi data bongena le mali njalo ngeminyaka
Ngicela Mr Speaker ukuthi indvuna lihloniphekile imane i-agenda debate indlu kahle Mr Speaker indvuna lihloniphekile ike ithathe i-finance committee bambe bawuhlala phansi Mr Speaker kuloku lokuncane ngiyajabula ukuthi uvuma kahle ngoba lo uphendule nje Mr Speaker kuyevakala. Ngiyacela ukuthi si-agenda debate bahambe bayobuka Mr Speaker kahle umuntu ucela lokho Mr Speaker nawe ngicela ungisupporte Mr Speaker.
Indvuna yetemafa umhlonishwa ne-Rickenback ibese yetfulela lendlu ehloniphekile timphendvulo.
But Honourable Speaker, there is pressure in this budget like I don't think we've had in many budgets, the pressure we have in this budget. Because of the salary review exercise, because of interest shooting up, And because of capital projects we've already approved in the House, which we now have to start, or else it's going to cost us a lot more. Unfortunately, there just was not space to fit things in this year. And so hence, Honourable Speaker, that is the reason why, not because there's no heart or no agape love or anything else, it was really a space problem that we battled to find to fit in something for the elderly. Again, we can go and look at it. I've got no problem. I know there's some suggestions that we should go back and consider it. We can do all that. But my plea would be and if we can maybe as Cabinet agree here, because we understand the pressure, is to say that next financial year, we don't look at inflation. We give them again 100 Emalangeni in the following financial year, elderly and disabled. In that way, they know it's coming. In that way, they can bargain and budget it. And we then know as a budgeting team, Nomaganjan, it must fit in before we look at other things next year.
Kuletinye tindzaba indlaba yesikhulu icele ukuthi uhulumende sekabuke indzaba yokwenabisa luhlelo lwemfundo yamahhala emabangeni laphakeme. Indlu ke yabayisikhulu akayishiya indzaba yenkohlakalo lathemalunga abuyisela emuva intuthuko yelive. Lobikako nguSamkalisiwe Khoza ePhalamende.
Tinkantolo lokuyijudiciary tithi tifuna kuphuma titimele njengekusho kwemtsetfosisekelo welakuleli tingendiwa tibe ngaphansi kwelitiko letemtsetfo kanye nemtsetfosisekelo uma kubuywa endzabeni yemali letiphakelwa yona. Lendzaba lena-ke ingxenye yembiko welikomiti ngekuxoxisana lelibe nako nendvuna yetemafa uma kukhulunyiswa imali yekuphakelwa ematiko ngemnyaka wetimali wa-2025-2026 kanye nalomnyaka timali lesikuyo.
Lathi 25 enyangeni endlovana lomnyaka losetulu tinkantolo tahlangana lekomiti lelitiko lwetemafa lapho tafike takhala khona ukuthi kungani tentiwe tibe ngephansi kwelitiko lwetemtsetfo uma tinikwe emaphakelo kanti phela umtsetfo sisekelo ukubeka ngalokusebala ukuthi titimele kulomhlangano lo lijaji lelikhulu leliphindze libe ngusihlalo welibandla lelicesha tisebenti tetinkantolo i-Judicial Service Commission JSC bekumaphalala belikatsi litfumelelo sabambe kuba mabhalane wenkantolo yetindzaba kanye nemacala andlulisiwe i-Supreme Court isiphiwe nyoni. Mabhalane wenkantolo lenkulu noSipho Mazibuko kanye nalobuke imali etinkantolo Dr. Glory Mdluli laba bafike bagcizelela bomcoka bekuthi tinkantolo tiphume tithi gelekece titimele njengaloku ukuthi nguleminye imikhono yahulumende letimele. Hulumende wakhiwa yimikhono lemithathu lokuthi inkantolo iPhalamende kanye nelibandla letindvuna tembuso. Lemkhono le ngekusho kwemtsetfosisekelo lakuleli kumele isebenze ngekukhululeka nangekutimela. Tinkantolo tatisa lelikomiti ukuthi tifuna kutimela emalini kude kube titawukhona kusebenta kahle nangekukhululeka. Tithi njengaleto letitimele atikhululwe tiboletha ngco ePhalamende lokho letifise kuphakelwa kona hhayi ukuthi tikulethe ngephansi kwelitiko letemtsetfo kanye nemtsetfosisekelo. Tinkantolo tithi tiyanaka ukuthi liphakelo lato liphethwe litiko letemtsetfo kanti futhi kumele ukuthi nakukhulunyiswa leliphakelo kufanele abe khona amabhalane lomkhulu walelitiko letemtsetfo. Tinkantolo tithi letimvumo tekuyosebentela ngephandle kwelakuleli travel approvals kulawulwa litiko letemtsetfo. Tithi lokhu kubanga tinkinga ekusebenteni kwato futhi akukhombe nje ukuthi titimele tona. Tinkantolo tichubha tithi uma setitimele timalini titawuchubeka tilandzele yonke imitsetfo lengamela imali yahulumende lokufaka ekhatsi kuvele ebandleni le-Public Accounts Committee i-PAC. Tinkantolo tithi ngani namanje-ke noma imali yathi ilawulwa ngabhalane lomkhulu etiko letemtsetfo kodwa nasetivele embi kwe-PAC ube sakasaba khona amabhalane lomkhulu kuleli tiko. Leli komiti selivele tetfulo tetinkantolo selitigucugucula libe selitfola ukuthi nembala vele kuyonakala ngendlela liphakelo letinkantolo leliphethwe ngayo naleliphindze lihlelwe ngayo njengalokho ikhomba kwephula umtsetfosisekelo uma sekubuye etindzabeni tekuthi tinkantolo tingileto letitimele. Leli komiti lithi ayilungiswe ngekushesha lendzaba le yokuthi tinkantolo tentiwe tibe ngephansi kwelitiko nakubuye etimalini. Lithi akuye njengekusho kwemtsetfosisekelo ukuthi tinkantolo tingileto letitimele. Leli komiti libe selincoma ukuthi indvuna yelitiko letemtsetfo kanye nendvuna yelitiko letemafa abaphutfume bahlangane netinkantolo. Inhloso lenkulu kubuka indlela liphakelo letinkantolo leliphethwe ngayo naleliphindze lihlelwe ngayo kude kutokucinisekisa ukuthi tinkantolo tingileto letitimele sibili. Lobikako ngumfortune Dlangamandla ngisembabane.
Kanti-ke sisachubeka nato tindzaba tethu kunesimemetelo lesichamuka ebandleni letelukhetfo nemincele yetinkhundla i-Elections and Boundaries Commission lememasive kule miphakathi letawulandzela ukuthi sibe yingcenye yemihlangano wekufundza ngelukhetfo ngananga emalanga lalandzelako. ngomgcibelo mhla tisikhombisa inyanga yeNdlovulenkhulu eminyakeni losedulu esifundeni saseLubonjeni kutaba ngumphakathi wasemacetsheni ngaphansi kwenkundla yaseGilgal sikhathi kutaba ngo-10 ekuseni. Inkundla esifundeni sakaManzini kutaba ngumphakathi waseluyengweni, inkundla ngilobamba lomdzala nakhona makubumbana insimbi yelishumi ekuseni. Kanjalo naseshiselweni umphakathi wasengwene ngaphansi kwenkundla yasengwene sikhathi sitawufana kube ngunakubumbana insimbi yelishumi ekuseni. Kanti-ke ngelilanga lelihlukile kutawuba lisonto mhla tisiphohlongo enyangeni yeNdlovulenkhulu kulo mnyaka losedulu. Sifundza kutaba kuseNkhabave kaManzini, umphakathi ngilamgabi kanye nenkhundla ngilamgabi. Sikhathi-ke khona kutaba uma kubumbana insimbi yemfica ekuseni 9 AM. Kanti-ke kwekugcina esifundeni saseshiselweni umphakathi wakumathendele ngaphansi kwenkundla yaseshiselweni 2 sikhathi sekucala ngo8:30 ekuseni. Bantu labasha, bantu labakhubatekile, bomake nabo babe bangasali kule mihlangano. Simemetelo sikhishwa ngusihlalo welibandla uMvane Nkosi Mhlaplangene Dlamini. Emsabeni temidlalo imbabane Highlanders iwaphike onke emacala lebekwe wona inhlangano yePremier League ngemsindvo lowasuka endzebeni yeNgwenyama Cup. Lelicala lelicale esukwini langa lesithathu kusihlwa lichubeke ngalesine emini khona esigwaca embabane.
Icembu lembabane Highlanders libhekene nemacala lamathathu lafaka ekhathi ukuthi bahluleka kulawula abalandzeli balo lapho khona bajika tikotela ekhathi enkundleni. Bangena ekhathi enkundleni baphindze-ke bashaya Nombembe lokwaphocelela ukuthi umdlalo ungasapheli, kanti-ke Nombembe wabe selahlekelwa natinfo takhe letingabita ngetulu kwa-1000 emalangeni. Nalichubeka leli cala ummeli wayo iPremier League ufunzeleke imbabane Highlanders emacala wase-ke uthula ubufakazi bakhe lokufaka ekhathi imbiko yaNombembe, umbiko wa-match commissioner kanye naloyo losuka amelele yona inhlangano yePremier League kuto enkundleni temidlalo nakuchubekayo nemidlalo. Licembu le-Highlanders liveleke lawaphika onke lawo macala lasima kakhulu ekutheni imbiko yaNombembe na-match commissioner ayithembakali njengoba ide ubuqiniso. Kanti futhi-ke Nombembe walimala lokutamenza-ke ukuthi asole nangobe ngangibani kulawo macala. Kanti-ke nangesikhathi Nombembe aveta ukuthi ligoli langena nini akuhambelani naloko lokuvetwa ngiloyo lobuke imidlalo lochamuka khona ka-Premier League. Kanti-ke futhi yona lembiko yabo Nombembe na-match commissioner ayikashicilelwa ngekusayinwa lapho kumele kusayinwe khona.
We humbly submit that these two reports have to be thrown out and not be accepted for purposes of the charges that have been placed, as they are not authentic, nor are they conclusive as the rules provide that the referee's report is conclusive proof.
Iphindze-ke yathula nafakazi wayo lokungu-Richard Makhoba longumphathi kuleli cembu lofakazi-ke wathi yena waye emaphoyiseni ngakusasa ayobuka ukuthi khona yini balandzeli bembabane Highlanders lababoshiwe. Kungilapho athola khona ukuthi kude asabutisiswa. Makhoba uthi bonke abalandzeli bembabane Highlanders labatiwako ngulabo labagcoka tembatfo taleli cembu nalidlala. Loya enkhundleni angakagcoki tembatfo taleli cembu akusuye umlandzeli lowatibako kufaka ekhathi labo laba bese bayaboshwa bavele nasenkantolo. Lokungako-ke athi imbabane Highlanders yona ayizange wenda onke lawo macala. Leli cala libese-ke lichujekiswa elangeni lanamuhla kungilesine lapho khona i-Highlanders ivetile ukuthi nabofakazi lababili labasele liseta abaphakamisa. LokunguSifiso Ndwandwe lophindza akhulumele leli cembu kanye-ke naNdumiso Mabuza lophindza benkapteni kulo licembu. Imthandazo yayo imbabane Highlanders ngiko ukuthi leli cala licithwe. Icala libese-ke liyaguca. Lobekela umsakazo we-Eswatini TV kutemidlalo ngiphathizwe Msibi embabane.
Sitephetsa kanjalo indzaba tetfu sitawuba hlola etimakethe sitawubuya masinyane hlala nathi. Welcome back to the program. Let's quickly look at this clip from the United Nations.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Israel's ambassador to the UN, Danny Danon, will deliver an update on Operation Roaring Lion, and he'll take your questions as well. Just remember to state your name and outlet.
Good afternoon. Yesterday, Hezbollah joined Iran and launched missiles and drones toward Israel, openly declaring they were avenging the deaths of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. It showed the Iranian terror regime over the people of Lebanon. It opened fire on Israeli civilians. Israel responded with precise strikes on Hezbollah military targets, command centers, weapons storage sites, and senior operatives. More than a year has passed since the UN Security Council reaffirmed Resolution 1701. That resolution is very clear. Hezbollah must disarm and withdraw from southern Lebanon. More than a year later, it has done exactly the opposite. It has rebuilt, rearmed, and today we see them in the south of the Litani River. They should not be there. It's very clear. Its leaders openly say they will never disarm. So let there be no confusion. Rockets pointed at Israeli homes will not remain there. Terror on the border will not be allowed to stand. We will act decisively and we will finish the job. To the government of Lebanon, Prime Minister Nawaf Salam has said Hezbollah must disarm. He is absolutely right. But statements do not dismantle rockets. We all know declarations do not stop terror. Only action does. We expect the Lebanese government to restrain Hezbollah, take control, act now to prevent further escalation. To those who choose terror against Israel, understand this. We will find you. We will hunt you down, and we will eliminate you. Just look at our record. Yahya Sinwar from Hamas, eliminated. Hassan Nasrallah, the leader of Hezbollah, eliminated. Abu Hamza Rami, the commander of the Palestinian Islamic Jihad in Lebanon, only yesterday, eliminated. And at the very top, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, the regime's supreme leader, eliminated. Earlier today, the IDF issued a direct message to any Iranian regime representatives still in Lebanon. Leave within 24 hours. There will be no safe place for you. Yesterday, the Iranian regime representative, Mr. Iravani, stood here before you and accused Israel and the United States of aggression. He spoke of lies and fabrications. He claimed Iran's nuclear program is exclusively peaceful. Can you believe it? So let me ask you directly, Mr. Iravani, if it is peaceful, why suspend IAEA monitoring? Why enrich uranium to levels far beyond civilian energy requires? Why build facilities deep underground? Peaceful programs do not hide. Peaceful programs do not pair enrichment with advanced ballistic missiles. Mr. Iravani, you had diplomatic options. You rejected them all. Mr. Iravani accuses Israel of aggression, but it is his regime that has struck a neighborhood in Bet Shemesh, killing 9 people, including 3 siblings. Israel, on the other hand, strikes military targets, command centers, missile launchers. His regime strikes innocent civilians, and that is the difference. We regret the loss of life of any civilian. Look what they are doing now, all across the region. No nation chooses this lightly, but there are moments in history when failing to act costs far more than acting. This is one of those moments. We are paying a high cost, but the threat does not stop at Israel. Look at this map. Look at the reach of their aggression. Hundreds of missiles and drones every day. Missiles launched toward the UAE, Bahrain, Oman, and many other countries. At least a dozen UN member states have been targeted, including Cyprus, a European country. This is not strategy, it is desperation. It is a regime lashing out like a rabid animal, dangerous to everyone around it. Now imagine for a moment that the same regime with nuclear warheads assembled onto those ballistic missiles. Imagine the danger not only to Israel, but to the entire world. That is why we acted. Every hour that passes, we further degrade their missile capabilities. So to the people in the region and to the people in Israel, we tell them, be patient. Give us some more time.
When you choose your adventures, you do so with an open heart and a desire for the unexpected. You embark on journeys to discover new worlds full of wonder. You choose a path to awaken your senses, a world to make you look up and realize just how inspiring this life can be. Arrive and awaken your heart. Explore life in ways only thought possible in your dreams. Discover just how far you'll go to expand your understanding of life's greatest mysteries. There's just one place on this planet with so much to offer. Now is the time for you to have the royal experience.
The Eswatini TV Board of Directors, Management and Staff wish to extend our sincerest congratulations to His Majesty King Mswati III on this historic Ruby Jubilee of His Majesty's coronation. Eswatini TV is deeply honored to celebrate the momentous occasion of His Majesty's 40 years on the throne. As a broadcaster, we have had the distinct privilege of witnessing your reign and steadfast leadership through our lenses, capturing every milestone of progress for the nation. Through our broadcast, we have documented a transformation driven by your vision, from significant infrastructural development to the delivery of exceptional social services and the unwavering promotion of national unity. We honor your steadfast dedication to uplifting all Emaswati and your profound commitment to peace, stability, and the spirit of agape love. May your Majesty continue to lead with wisdom and grace. Bayete wena waphakati.
Asimze sinimukele sikuvusele ngona nomuhla na usanza kusivulela ngolesihlanu sichubekana lohlelo sibheka lapha United Nations ku press conference lapho khona bebakhuluma nge-justice for all women and girls. Asivele silalele na clip ukuthi bebathini.
The water is fresh and it's all yours. Great. We're delighted to welcome back our friend Sarah Hendricks from UN Women. She's been very patient, so you all know her. I won't go through the whole introduction, but I will give you the floor, Sarah.
Thank you so much, Stefan, and good morning, everyone. Allow me to begin this part of the press briefing also by expressing our heartfelt solidarity with the women and girls across the Middle East. We are, of course, deeply concerned by the escalations of violence, and we certainly join the Secretary General in calling for that violence to stop for the sake of every woman and every girl whose lives, whose safety, and whose futures are really now at risk. As you know, today, we brief you on the 70th session of the Commission on the Status of Women. And this year's session focuses on a defining issue for gender equality, that of access to justice. As we meet, there are women who choose not to report the violence that they experience because they fear that they won't be believed, let alone protected. There are women who are paid less than their male counterparts in the very same work in places where the law does not actually require equal pay. And there are girls who don't have birth registration, who don't actually have a birth certificate, who face heightened risk of child marriage, who face heightened risk of trafficking because the system doesn't actually recognize them. And these are not isolated cases. They reflect indeed how power operates in societies and whose rights justice systems ultimately protect. Across the world, women and girls are navigating a very challenging moment, as you know. It is a challenging moment of profound strain, democratic backsliding, rising conflicts, economic pressures. There's also the shrinking of civic space, as well as increasingly organized pushback on gender equality and the regression of women's rights. And justice systems do not stand apart from those pressures. They actually reflect them. And where power remains unequal, justice rarely operates neutrally. This is often where retreat from gender equality becomes very visible, where it gets right into sharp relief. And discriminatory laws persist, accountability is uneven, and far too often impunity prevails. No country in the world right now has yet achieved full legal equality between men and women. I'll say that again. No country in the world has achieved full legal equality between women and men. More than half of the world's countries do not actually define rape by law on the basis of consent. Nearly 3/4, specifically 74% of the world's countries, actually still allow child marriage by law, allow girls to be married as children. And in 44% of the world's countries, the law does not mandate equal pay for work of equal value. In many places, the gains that once seemed settled, the gains that once seemed sure, such as protections against violence, equal rights in family law, safeguards against discrimination, these are now being contested amidst organized pushback and amidst this moment of tremendous pressure and strain. And justice, however, is where equality is decided. And yet, it's far too often where it's also denied. Many justice systems were built by institutions that are defined by power, specifically by patriarchal power. and continue to be implemented where this power prevails. And so when those structures, when those institutions go on decade after decade, years after years, unchanged, those justice systems risk reinforcing equality rather than actually correcting it. Traditional justice systems, the place where tens of millions of women around the world actually access justice, they can bring justice closer for women and girls, but they too are not impervious to inequalities. Those traditional justice systems too can perpetuate gender inequality. And where inequality is embedded, impunity indeed can follow. Across the world today, violations of the rights of women and girls are indeed accelerating in a growing culture of impunity. This spans courts, it spans also online spaces, and of course conflict, and also increasingly enabled by backlash against gender equality. In conflicts, as you know, rape continues to be utilized and weaponized as a weapon of war. In fact, just in the past 2 years, the total percentage of women and girls who become victims to conflict-related sexual violence has risen to 87%. And globally, when we look at the online spaces, digital technologies are being weaponized through harassment, through abuse, through deep fakes that silence women, that force women to deplatform. And far too often, perpetrators face absolutely no consequences. For many women and girls, the calculation on this is painfully rational. Reporting violence may bring retaliation, it could bring stigma, it could bring economic loss, with very little expectation that justice will actually follow. When justice fails women and girls, the damage goes far beyond any single story, any single woman's life. Victims and survivors in her community, in those societies, start to withdraw. Communities lose faith. And public trust erodes, and those justice institutions lose legitimacy. And a justice system, certainly, that fails half the world's population cannot claim to uphold justice at all. And yet, and there's always a but, justice systems actually can evolve, they can transform, and certainly when they do, the impact is indeed transformative. Access to justice is one of those powerful forces for advancing equality in the lives of women and girls. When laws change, we see those changes very practically, very concretely. Women start inheriting land. They start opening bank accounts. They start owning their own businesses. They start gaining a paycheck and claiming equal pay. In fact, since the year 1970, family law reforms have led to more than 600 million women accessing new economic opportunities, all because the law was reformed on the family. The Secretary General's report shows that realizing this transformative power of justice rests on some key priorities. And as I close, I'll just mention the top 6 of these. First, justice systems must be legally equal without exception. Discriminatory laws absolutely must be repealed and legal gaps closed so that rights are enforceable in practice. Second, justice systems must work together. What do I mean by that? That means that in the criminal context, the police, the prosecutors, the judges, the corrections, the legal aid providers, the health systems, the social services, all of these must work in an organized and coordinated way so those victims and survivors are not left on their own navigating through endless bureaucratic complexity, where so many actually just give up before pursuing justice. Third, justice must be preventative. Early protection measures, gender-responsive administrative systems, training, capacity building of justice actors, public legal education, all of this can stop violence before it escalates and before it ruins lives. Fourth, justice must be financed as a public good. Legal aid makes a difference. It is transformative. And so legal aid survivor-centered services, and institutional capacity really require sustained public investment. And fifth, justice reform needs to be shaped by women. It needs to be shaped for women. So here, let's look at the evidence again. Evidence consistently points to the fact that strong feminist movements are among the most reliable predictors of government action, of how governments spend money, of government policy, particularly to address violence. And yet many of these organizations operate under significant strain, increasing strain. A recent survey that UN Women undertook actually shows that nearly 90% of organizations working to end violence against women and girls actually are reporting reductions in essential services. They're reporting that they're near to closing their doors, and 5% only believe that they can actually sustain the current situation they're in and sustain their operations for more than 2 years. And finally, justice systems need to be ready for the digital age. Technology can expand access to justice, but without safeguards, digital tools, algorithms, these too risk perpetuating harms. They risk reproducing discrimination, and so innovation needs to expand justice and really not hard code inequalities. So CSW 70 is a decision point. It's a decision for member states on whether justice systems will continue to leave rights unevenly protected, or whether member states will legislate for equality, will finance implementation, will strengthen coordination, will really support those women's movements. We know what works. The evidence is there. The question, I think, before the Commission on the Status of Women is whether we will confront impunity and invest in justice systems that deliver equality in both law and life. We want justice to really reach the everyday lived realities of women and girls. And there are two roads that the Secretary General describes in his report. A road where there are justice needs of women and a road of the justice systems. And he describes how those two roads need to meet. And so CSW is our opportunity to ensure that those roads do meet and that they deliver rights, justice, and action for all women and girls everywhere. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
On that note, Edie, please.
Thank you very much, Sarah, on behalf of the United Nations Correspondents Association. My name is Edith Lederer from the Associated Press. My question is very simple. At a time when the fight for gender equality is going backwards, how are you ever going to convince 193 member nations at CSW to actually reverse course and move forward? Isn't it really an unrealistic goal?
Go ahead.
Thank you, Edie. Always to be expected of you, a hard-hitting question. I appreciate it. Listen, the negotiations for this year's agreed conclusions of the CSW have been underway for the last 2 weeks. And the negotiations across member states are actually proceeding in quite a constructive environment. There are, as always, those contentious issues of challenge and of complexity that are rearing their heads in the room. But on the whole, our perspective is that member states are coming to the table eager to see a final set of agreed conclusions. It will be, of course, always a more balanced text that reflects the full slate of member state interests and demands and priorities. But your question, which is about the pushback, is probably the more important one. And right now is no time to step back on gender equality. We have seen far too long that impunity has grown, that violence has grown. Over almost, 25% of countries around the world report that pushback on gender equality and regression on rights are one of the key constraints from their ability to actually implement that Beijing Declaration and platform for action. But in this time of crisis and conflict, the world cannot let its foot off the pedal. And we are seeing member states and partners of of, I would say, unsuspecting areas actually come forward with stronger voices of support and calling for gender equality and women's rights to be advanced now more than ever.
Thank you. Ephraim?
Thank you so much, Ms. Hendricks. Ephraim Kosaifi from Arab News Daily. You mentioned, and you put it, you said that there is no perfect country when it comes to women's rights and women equality, but could you be maybe specific and give us the top 3 countries where these rights are being most violated so that we can focus on them, for example, as cases and examples? Please.
Thank you so much, Ephraim. So in the Secretary General's report, it doesn't focus on a comparative analysis of countries. However, allow me to say that what the report does show is that in the context of conflict and in the context of crises, it's in those contexts where now 676 million women and girls live within a 50-kilometer proximity to that conflict, where justice is particularly constrained and denied for women and girls. And so this includes the countries such as Sudan. It includes Haiti. It includes Afghanistan. It includes, of course, Gaza and Palestine. It includes now increasingly in Iran. And across the Middle East. We do know that gender equality is not a distraction from peace and security. It is indeed a precondition for it. And so within those contexts, if we want to prevent further instability, if we want to build lasting peace, Ephraim, we cannot afford to sideline half the world's population, and we need to place women, peace, and security at the center of the solutions.
Thank you so much. One more quick one, also specifically on Palestine and Sudan. These are women who have undergone a very extreme experience, which is genocide. When you say justice needs to make its way to the everyday woman, how does justice look to you when it comes to women who have undergone genocide in Palestine and Sudan for the past 3 years?
That justice is very complex, Ephraim. And it involves reparations. It involves those who are accountable to be held to account. It also involves investigations so that the experiences of violence and injustice that you have just described come to light. This, too, is an imperative part of how justice in the context of conflict and crisis is meted out. But here, this is where the criticality of international human rights and international humanitarian law must and should play its part.
Thank you. Namo?
Namo Abdullah with Ruda Media Network. I have 2 questions. One on access to justice for Yazidi women survivors in Iraq. Thousands of women survivors of the Islamic State atrocities. What barriers are they facing as they seek accountability, reparations, and psychological support from both national justice mechanisms and the international ones? That's the first question.
Can you repeat that question? I'm sorry.
Like, what barriers are Yazidi women survivors facing? Does the report talk about that at all?
Yeah. Thank you. And your second question?
And my second question, you mentioned democratic backsliding and regression in women's rights. My question is, what metrics are you using to measure this, and compared to what baseline exactly? Is there a measurable rise, for example, in incidents that would confirm this trend? Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Namo. Yes? Thank you so much, Namo, for your important question. I'll start with the latter first. In terms of how the measurement to backsliding on women's rights and shifts in terms of the pushback on gender equality, some of this is manifested in very clear and concrete ways and is part of how UN Women tracks this. And that is actually on the regression of and changes in laws. And that's what this year's CSW is all about. When there is laws that are in place to protect women, to ensure their access to economic opportunity are actually repealed, that is a key signal that there is regression. It's one of the most important signals. But it doesn't stop there. We also see it in terms of the constraints in civic space, the space in which women hold to have their voices heard within societies, and that too can be measured, as well as the sheer financing and funding that goes to women's organizations, as well as to the gender machineries, or the machineries meaning the ministries of women and girls, or of gender equality and social services, on whether or not those are funded or not, prioritized or not. In terms of your question on Yazidi women survivors in Iraq and the barriers they are facing, this, again, as I mentioned, the report doesn't focus on any specific group of either people or specific countries. That notwithstanding, the seeking for accountability and the seeking for reparations is highlighted throughout the report as a critical a critical process of transitional justice. Thank you.
Thank you. Stefano?
Thank you for this report. Stefano Vaccara, La Voce di New York and Ital Press. I wonder if in your report you have, you mentioned, you have anything on the Epstein files and how the justice in this country, I'm not talking only about the last year, the Justice Department of the last year. I'm talking about the Justice Department of this country for about maybe 30 years, how it handled the accusation and then what it's been proven that hundreds of women, many underaged, have been trafficked here. And I thought there were women that were going to the FBI and so on, everything was covered up. Until today, that we know that there are still documents. So do you have anything on the performance of the U.S. Justice Department in the last 30 years on protecting women from abuse?
Excellent question. In terms of, and I'm sorry I keep repeating myself, the report does not focus, again, on any specific country or context. But allow me to say that what it does do is focus on the breakdown of law and the spread of impunity, and how when impunity is allowed and when legal justice systems are not supported to protect women and girls who are victims of violence, that this affects and hits women and girls first and hardest. And when those justice system fails, it is a precursor for violence rising. When justice systems fail, survivors actually become more silenced. When justice systems fails, perpetrators of abuse actually act without consequence, and inequality and fear is deepened across society. And we do see that when justice systems fail, that whole rule of law actually gets eroded, and gets eroded for everyone. As I said before, those justice systems themselves, their legitimacy gets called into question. And so this is why it's so critical that we have justice systems that are strengthened, that are oriented to the needs, the priorities, the rights of women and girls, especially those who have been trafficked or who are survivors of violence.
Just a quick follow-up. Do you have, in your personal, I mean, I don't know as, personal opinion, would you give, do you have any advice now for the Attorney General and the Justice Department of this country, of U.S., on how to, how to protect now women?
Thank you, Stefano. I think, number one, I'm not an Attorney General, though my background is in international human rights and women's rights law. I think the recommendation would be that women and girls are listened to, that they are believed, that violence against women and girls is recognized as a human rights violation, and that it is framed in such a way that it's never accepted and never ignored. Every case, and allow me to underscore that, Stefano, every case must be investigated, every perpetrator held accountable, and justice delivered for women and girls everywhere.
Lokho lapho siphathele kona lokusuka ka-United Nations yi-press conference leya lapho bakhuluma khona tindzaba tabomake kanye nemantfombatana. Sibe ahlele temakethe sitawubuye sitovala hlelo.
When you choose your adventures, you do so with an open heart and a desire for the unexpected. You embark on journeys to discover new worlds full of wonder. You choose a path to awaken your senses, a world to make you look up and realize just how inspiring this life can be. Arrive and awaken your heart. Explore life in ways only thought possible in your dreams. Discover just how far you go to expand your understanding of life's greatest mysteries. There's just one place on this planet with so much to offer. Now is the time for you to have the royal experience.
All right, 3 minutes before 8 o'clock, sesiyaliphetha ihlelo leflomhla ekuseni. Sicala impela somfo, sesemba ukuthi nitawutiphatha kahle, drink responsibly, party safe, lanto abeni khona and make sure you get a sober driver. Asifuni kunibona emaphephandaba abeni on Tuesday. Sesemba ukuthi indaba impela somfo lenhleni kusisekile.
Bekunene hayi impela sonto ayibengilenhle uteka indzaba yabo sober driver lolu siyayigcizelela leyo ngoba emaphoyisa embubene sive seloku nje ayabonga esiveni semaswati kungathi kuna improvement. Ngiyakhumbula lokho ukuthi uma sicala livikisi icocisene naloxhumanisa wona amaphoyisa embubene sive noSipho Mnguni washo lokho ukuthi nangesikhathi sibuya kumela sonto la khona besikhathi ukuthi amaswati engcenye ata unatha kakhulu la isizini lesesikuyo yebugano cha emaswati akhomplayile ukukhombisa wona ukuthi inhlonipho emaswati aqhubeka ayihambisa embili khutsata nje ukuthi nakuyo lempela sonto lesiyicalako emaswati yaphinze ende njalo sitibone tinombolo tibati incane ngale kwaloko awu bekunene impela sonto seyavele ibe ngulenhle lesikholwa nabo sesiyawuhlangana emasonveni bemaphathi bayavuselana nabo sithembe ukuthi nabo bayawufike bakhonde ngendlela abakhonda ngayo sithi kube neagape love kule mpela sonto sithi haleluya ni sale kahle
Mswatu ingosi akaithathe akaithathe akahambe nayo akaithathe